Hey, what's going on, good people? It's your boy James Harris, of course, Mental Heal. Listen, I appreciate all the support over the years, whether it was for my book, man, Just Express Yourself, which is an interactive planning guide for boys and men to better express themselves. So salute to those parents who got it for their young sons. Praises to those partners and couples who got it for the men in their life. Of course, to the schools, the administrative, and everybody else who ordering the book by the dozens. I definitely appreciate that. And also salute to everybody who supported me on Cheesy Date Board Games, which is a good game for adults and couples, your game night, your date nights. So many interactive ideas come from it. I definitely love the responses that it's garnering. But now I'm asking for your support again on this YouTube journey. I'm back. I took a little break because I had so much going on, but be a little bit more consistent with it. I got a couple interviews lined up with prominent people and people doing phenomenal things within the community or within this mental health space or even different authors and things like that. So bear with me. Appreciate your support. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And the guest that I got coming up now is.
First and foremost, man, I would want to introduce myself as being as a servant of Allah, and that's important for me, because that means that I'm Muslim. It's the highest honor, better than any title, any career, any identity that I could possibly have. So I asked myself that question last night, and then when I said if I was gonna be asked, that, I was gonna say, open up by first announcing, that I'm Muslim. Socially, what I mean, when they know me as Abdul Haqq, a husband, a father, a son, aspiring community builder, a coach to some. I don't know how I got there, but I got there. And and I believe that Allah has blessed me. He blessed me with a level of influence and visibility, um, and a vision, which gives me a certain responsibility.
Okay, appreciate that warm introduction, man. So I got introduced to you based on your work that you do in the community, as well as you got one of my favorite places to get my soaps and oils from,
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
but for the people who don't know your journey, you are a formerly incarcerated person, served over 20 years. You don't have to get into the specifics, but can you talk a little bit about that journey, being a returning citizen and being integrated back into society?
Wow, another great question. I mean, that journey, man, it has been an interesting one for me. Of course, as you mentioned, at a very young age, man, actually as a teenager, 16 years old, man, I made a decision that ultimately cost me a significant amount of time in my life. And, since then, 6 years later, I'm here back in my city of Richmond, Virginia. Um, and, you know, it's had its challenges, to be quite honest, man. Making that decision early on. Definitely, I'm grateful for what it is that my family, my father more specifically, because I was raised by a single father, a native of Richmond, Vietnam veteran, 40 years my senior, who did everything that he could, man, to instill in me, a high level of morale and character. And that decision that I made many years ago is no reflection of my upbringing. It really came by way of being a young man trying to figure himself out. And, that whole element, I know I'm kind of speaking to the choir when I say to you about development, you know what I'm saying? It's like that was a show sign of uh, lack of maturity. And so, therefore, while when going in there and coming back out here and now trying to reintegrate myself into society and doing for some many people look doing like they say a wonderful job. It still poses many challenges by way of trying to understand, even with the things that I'm being placed with a certain level of responsibility over, how that decision impacts a lot of the ways and things that I do positively as well as negatively as far as lack of knowing. So I mean, but I'm getting there every day. It's putting me in, placing me in spaces and around people who I need to be around, such as yourself and many others in the community that sees my vision.
No, definitely, man. It's not oftentimes returning citizens and or people who have been within any type of system, whether it was ward of the state, whether it was institutionalized because of incarceration, they come back and they have difficulty integrating back into society, whether that's finding a place to stay, getting a job, different
Mhm.
resources. So to see that you have been in a position of, creating your own support circle, your own village, and then inviting others in to learn different tools and things like that. So how did you identify these lessons post incarceration to one, not return back to the system, but two, the things you have in place now, whether it's your store, the community circles that you're doing, of course, marriage, family man, like all of those things. Like what did you learn post incarceration in order to, I guess, walk this right path now?
Right. So it starts within first and foremost. It starts with taking accountability. You know what I'm saying? This is very important. Understanding that you have to take responsibility for the decisions that you make. And I think honestly, like I really feel like that is the biggest part of it because the moment after I made that decision, not prior, not getting not going into the facility, but after the actual act in itself, like that light was like, oh, you know what I mean, which led to me, you know what I'm saying, even going as far as like, turning myself in too, and I say that because like that's how I validate the statement that I'm making about being responsible. And so then when you get out here, it's kind of like you gotta wanna do something different with yourself because you realize now that you done put yourself at a disadvantage. You know what I mean? By way of what the stigma made that comes along. Even though there's I gotta say there's a treasure of individuals that are in that situation right now, man, that could be of a great benefit to our community as a whole because it doesn't take but a moment of acknowledging, you know what I mean, that you need to do something different with yourself. So then it listening, you know what I mean, coming out here and putting yourself around people who could give you the type of advice that you would need in order to start your path of success as well. Not, and taking what they're saying, into consideration to what you yourself already have, because that's another problem sometimes brothers have. It's kind of like you lose the confidence to believe that the decisions that you know that you can make them by yourself. So then you become a little bit more dependent than you should on the advice of others, and that I know many in your space and other spaces can see how that impacts them too. So then I came out. I gotta say this too because I realized too that brothers, everybody's situation is different. You know what I mean? And so when I came out, actually, man, my father, he was battling cancer at the time, and so he had been battling cancer for quite some time. He actually was in stage 4 when I had returned home. And may Allah have mercy upon him in the grave. Like, a little joke amongst us, it's not, though it's not a joke, it matters. Like, one thing about it, like, he was like, I ain't going nowhere till I make sure, man, my son get out here, man, he can do what he needs to do for himself. But the reality is that by coming out to him, for me, that was an added level of responsibility. I just shared a story about Miss Shane, who owns Southern Kitchen, while I was working, because I came out and got 2 jobs. That was another thing. You know what I mean? I came right out and I got into work. I got home in August, and when I think it was like September, October, they were doing a lot of seasonal hiring. So I got in a position in that way, and I was determined to not need, to in that independence, it's like I don't really want to ask nobody for anything. And it's not out of pride, but it's like I'm a man. I know that I can figure this thing out. You know what I mean? And so I came out, I worked the 2 jobs. But it was funny because my father told me while I was incarcerated, you're gonna get out here and you're not gonna work for anybody. And I kind of was like, yeah, you kind of pumped like, I get it. You know what I mean? I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, but I ain't, you know what I mean? I get it. And his reasoning was that so much time had lapsed that I'm not gonna be, I'm not gonna be comfortable having to commit my time to some other type of structure. You know what I mean? And he was right because
Yeah.
I found myself in one of what they had come to discover. I looked on Google, like one of the top 6 or 7 careers that a person could have. I had began working for the company UPS. Worked my way up to being a parcel carrier and stuff like that. The benefits and all of that. You know what I mean? So it was just kind of like, oh yeah, great. But in the back of my mind, it was something else, that I really needed to do. And then also the motivation for wanting to let my peers know, man, that and like my cup right here, man. You can take lemons and make lemonade. And that was my daddy's statement, and that's what I wanted to do.
Hey, no, I got you, man. Because a lot of returning citizens come home and find themselves with no community, realistically. It sounds like your
Mm.
father was very instrumental, and then you were afforded the opportunity to work at different places.
Mm.
So, can you speak to what somebody can do if they're a returning citizen and don't have that level of support or community backing them in those situations?
So take advantage of what it is that the department may be offering. I know, you know what I'm saying, it's sometimes hard to believe that they may have your best interest when offering such as programs like breaking barriers, anger management, and now even more so, they're leaning on the actual population for brothers to do peer-to-peer work. And, I believe that brothers should really support the brothers who are putting in the time and having the ability to create a language in which you can understand and implement when you come out here. That's essential. Um, and so when they have those different opportunities to have persons come in and offer resources, get the telephone number, make the contacts. Don't believe that it's in vain. You know what I mean? And then follow up, because most times it's so many individuals reaching out to different organizations that they can't necessarily personalize what it is that they want to do for you unless you take the initiative. So initiative is very important. You know what I mean? And don't worry about the no's. You know what I mean? Like just keep knocking and don't believe that there's no door that you can't knock on. That's my thing for real.
No, I appreciate that. And you said something that was valuable, the peer aspect. So I'm in a space now of mental health. I got a couple different certifications. I got a certification in gambling with the Department of Health, and I got a, substance use certification and all those things. But I can tell you the peer aspect of it. So people who walked that or navigated that journey, uh, tend to be more beneficial to somebody who's actually in that part of their recovery. So I understand the peer aspect of formerly incarceration can be beneficial to those. So I'm glad you was able to touch on that, man.
I mean, it's important. I myself personally have began a journey. That was another thing that I did. I first came home. Shout out to Mr. Elvis Brooks, who helped me go through the first levels of obtaining my peer recovery specialist certification. Maybe wink, wink. You might find some time, man, to help me get my hours. You know what I mean? Because I definitely that's the next level of it because it's stages to it. And I think the reason why it's been such a gap in me doing that and following it up was the authenticity that is necessary in order to really affect change. You know what I mean? Because even in the initial stages of learning about what peer recovery, lived experience, certified individuals should be implementing, it's the authenticity more than anything. Like no textbook can prepare you for what another human being may be going through. And I think that that's why in the last few years, the departments, the institutions, college, whatever, is really taking it serious because it's like if you never been through it, it's gonna be hard to connect with the individual. You can read about it and see as many videos as you want, but it's like to have a person, because some person such as yourself who have committed and got into schooling, um it's very important that we as people who have whatever that area is have the person who has the said certification to help us understand what we're looking at, because that's kind of where I'm at now in my space, you know what I mean? Even by being a retail space owner and some of the right here on Broad Street, and some of the persons that come in, you know what I'm saying, and wanting to help them, not realizing that sometimes my idea of help really isn't the help that they need. So having a person who has an ability to help you understand, if you give them this food at this particular moment, that's not helping them. You like, what? But they were hungry. And you like, no, you have to kind of like help them understand the resource. But how can I help them understand the resource if I'm not familiar with the resource? So yeah, that part.
No, man, I appreciate you breaking that down and explaining it. Now, as far as the process in your personal journey when it comes to restoration of rights or all of those things, did you partake in that or was your rights automatically restored after a certain amount of years?
So full transparency, man, like that's a little bit different of a dynamic for me. Number one, as I opened up as being one who ascribes to Islam and understanding the differences of things that I, find myself being involved in. And so it isn't up until really here recently. I've had great individuals, man, like real trailblazers out here that are like my brother Sincere, and Miss Sheba, like they like what has happening is that they're in what I said, you gotta listen, you gotta educate, like you gotta allow yourself to understand what the people are explaining to you is important, because the reality is that I need to understand the restoration of rights, especially as a business owner. You know what I mean? Like, it's certain places and positions that I'm placing myself in and not understanding how important it is that who's in office and all of this can necessarily affect how it is that I'm looking to live my life. You know what I mean? And so that's one of those things where, like, so now they're working with me. They're helping me to understand, like, okay, you came out at this period of time, and during this period of time, during this regime, these were the things were afforded to you. Now, during this period of time, this is what's going on with these brothers. So it's not a cookie cutter like situation. Everybody's is not the same. Some brothers came out, that was automatically restored. It was a part of it. There's some individuals who had to go the extra mile to make sure that, and then there's some who I think we're in a period now where it's not an automatic. You know what I mean? So, like, yes, sir.
So those things are definitely critical and important. So I'm glad you out working with Sheba. I had her on not too long ago, and we
Yes,
were
sir.
talking
Yes, sir.
about restoration of rights, pardons, and so many other factors for returning citizens. And I would say, just being in the Commonwealth of Virginia, you want to be abreast of those things too, because we are one of the only places who have an election every 1 or 2 years,
Okay.
and the administrations change so frequently, whether it is local offices and or congressional offices, such
Yes,
as
sir.
the governor. So, um, it's a historic value that's about to be in approaching in November. We have the opportunity to have the first woman governor, and who knows, regardless of which one of them takes office, their policies are going to be as far as returning citizens. So I would definitely say you definitely want to continue to navigate that journey and see what's best for you in that situation.
Yes, sir.
But you already thriving even without those potential rights. So I would say continue to do that, but just imagine the additional bonus that can come from it once you do have your rights restored. It probably
Understood.
it probably affords you some other financial opportunities, whether it's grants or loans, or continue to assist other people in building their enterprises. So even if you feel like I don't need it, but you might
Right.
see somebody else who could benefit from what you have to offer.
Well, I definitely. I'm not gonna say I don't need it. I'm gonna say that.
Yeah, now I got you, man. So speaking of what you already have going on without having your rights, let's talk about some of the things you do have going on, such as this fascinating store right in the heart of Richmond on Broad Street. Talk to me about the store, man. How'd you come up with the concept and how'd you get it started, to be honest with you? Because somebody right now probably is sitting on a vision and got money and don't know what to do with it, and or don't have money and want to start a store or some type of business. So I think that can be beneficial as well.
Well, my store. Again, I'm sitting there thinking, like, the entrepreneur journey, like, started for me at a very young age. That's the reality. I was going around taking all my father's products out his car, knocking on people's door, washing their cars, take these shovels, shoveling the driveways, raking leaves. You know what I mean? So entrepreneurship has always been something that's deeply been inside of me. The aspect of what we are seeing here today is from Haaq's drawer, particularly dealing with the like the holistic items that I may have or the fragrances. Both aspects of those are like really, really personal for me. And again, as I introduce myself as a Muslim, it ties right back into it. You know what I mean? The reality is that these are some things um I came in contact with at a young age. Like, my father was already really big on us taking garlic and understanding black seed into the end of it. And then what was interesting was that in his during his cancer treatments, he had opted to not. deal with a lot of the pharmaceutical suggestions that they were giving almost into the last 8 months when I came home, just based off of what he had discovered from using, the things that I have in my store: soursop, moringa, black seed, turmeric. You know what I mean? And he was 77 years old, like fighting this joint, and his battle was like, you know, for one, all praise be to God, but like that jump was exceeding their expectations. I had an opportunity to go into some of these, follow ups, and it just kind of like, sir, it was just like, I know I'm supposed to tell you this, but it's like I can see whatever it is that you're doing is working, so we just want to check you out. The fragrance aspect of it, man. Um, Everybody loves to smell good. I mean, inside incarcerated, we was afforded like four different oils. Brothers who've been incarcerated they already know frankincense, sandalwood, blue Nile or whatever. And every now and then they will open the gates up a little bit for us, depending on what institution we were at, and afford us some extra smells. But the thing about it is all of these places have like the same type of smell, you know what I mean? So if you kind of like got in contact with some oils, it was just like, oh yeah. And so when I came out, man, I also realized too, as a Muslim, that the demographic of people in which I created the store for, we weren't really being addressed as far as our needs and products, because I also, carry the traditional garments for the brothers and the sisters. So I think that really, really got me going, because I felt like I was able to bring something to the city that, as many brothers and sisters as much as they do for our community, kind of had, kind of dropped the ball on that one. So, when I got that idea for the bring the products, it originally started out the back of my vehicle. It wasn't a brick and mortar. I started the brick and mortar actually. I had a partner originally, and then I went away to school for some time. Well, I actually traveled for a second to take up some study. Let's just say that, right? And in doing that, it kind of opened my mind up to what I really wanted to do here in the city. So that's what really pushed us into the next phase. We started off in one suite, and now if you come into the store, if you haven't been in some time, we have now expanded the store, the fragrance room. I mean, it's just great, man, because it gave me, it gave me some stake in the game, and then it ties back to what I'm expressing about the authenticity of an individual's, ability to help someone else that has walked in my shoes, to realize that you can take a situation, turn it around, and not only impact yourself but be good for the community as well, because it's a community store, man. Like, it's opened me with relationships with the colleges. You know what I mean? Like, I have a great relationship. Like, we even got a discount for all the colleges. You know what I mean? School period for real, but like the colleges. You know what I mean? Because they show mad love to the store, man, and their parents will come in after. Like, I gotta share this part. It's interesting because you'll have a student come in throughout their school year, and when their parents come to visit, they'll be like, "I'm coming inside the store because I've heard, like, I'm trying to figure out why I'm sending this cash app, and I needed to see." You know what I mean? I'm just like, this is our store. You know what I mean?
Nah, hey man, I know about I know about your entire store, but you talked about the fragrance side, the merchandise side, but can you talk about the second suite, the wellness space side, where you do your men's circles at, where you have the
Right,
book, where you have the shirts and
right.
a couple other things that you do on that
And,
side of it.
and hold on one second, because I did this instinct. That would happen. See, that would happen, man. Loving incense, you get smoky. Um. So now in regard to that, so I'm glad you went into that, right? So what happened was that we created a side which we call Creator Space, and Creator Space was to give other entrepreneurs, other visionaries, an opportunity to market their products without the responsibility of having to take on a brick and mortar. Cause I got so many brothers, man. My brother Shy, he got a great, he probably gonna be mad I said this. He got a great clothing line. I'm like super down on him for him to put it out. One of my sisters, Neona, Nisha Boutique, like they was around me and I seen what they had and I was like, yo, people would love this stuff. You know what I mean? And so it motivated them to kind of put some things together, and we had it in this side which we call Creative Space. And Creative Space really came by way of an initiative that I formulated, which is a nonprofit called Think Broad. And so from that was the first project, which was to bring in some shelving, which my wife did, brought us in some shelving, and we, found different individuals to place their items inside. Now, what ended up happening too, and so you know you kind of mentioned, because these are two different things: the wellness aspect of the men's groups that we've had, which really made me be down on you, because I was just like, hey, bro, when you get some time, I would love for you to, pencil us in once a month, or however it can be, to come in and kind of moderate, I guess, brothers coming together under one space, and it being, we gonna get together and talk, but let's be intentional with the conversations, you know what I mean? And that's what I was really, hoping, and I know we still working on being able to get you some time to come do that with us. But what happened with the side that I did, the marketing for the entrepreneurs, was that, and I'm talking about this a lot now, knowing your business, knowing how to run a business, you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, sometimes zeal, and this is a statement, zeal without knowledge is like a runaway house. So you can have all this passion for a thing, but if you don't have the said information to be able to make it, to do what it needs to be done, then it ultimately doesn't have an opportunity to manifest exactly to what you want it to, right? So learning this, business pivots, and I had to accept that, like I had to accept that that's not a failure, but it's actually a sign of growth, that, you know what I mean, like you may have came in want to do one thing, but it may not be the best thing to do at this moment. So that's how we came up with the fragrance room, even though we just did something with the fragrance room that's going to allow this space to be more utilized the way that I told you that I wanted to utilize it, and open the floor. I was able to host a screening, and I thought I sent that to you one time, but I knew you was too busy. What is it? I just met this sister, man, for the first time. They did the daddy daughter.
Daughters.
Uh,
Yeah.
she has an organization. I'm sorry, I'm not even remembering the sister's name right now, but in that screening, man, I had like 10 brothers come, because it's not about what is it? It's quality over quantity. So it wasn't about having a lot of people show up, right? But the brothers that came in, man, without me even trying to schedule it or nothing, it inspired this like need to talk. And the brothers talked about how that video impacted them. So again, that gave me the impetus to know that I'm headed on the right path as far as creating a safe space for brothers to congregate and get out the things that they need to get out, and trust one another to know that that which they sharing with each other can help get to the next thing.
No, definitely, man. The lady that you're speaking of is Angela Patton,
Yeah,
and
Miss Patton. Yes,
yeah,
ma'am. Yes,
her
sir.
organization is I forgot, but the movie is Daughters that she created. So
Yep.
phenomenal tool piece for those who are fathers, and they was going through this period of having some type of prom or daddy daughter dance while
Yep.
incarcerated.
Yep.
Phenomenal pieces on Netflix. I think it should still be on there.
It is.
Yeah,
Shout out to Chad. The brother is a coach as well that works with the system, man. For us hard, for us, sometimes we get a little stubborn as men, you know what I mean? And sometimes it's hard for us to hear what the sisters is telling us. So, that brother is there to kind of drive the point home. And I had an opportunity to meet him last week during Sheba's event, and I was grateful.
nice, nice, man. So speaking of your entrepreneurship journey, where you are as far as community support, I also noticed you hire students as well as formerly incarcerated people. So talk about why that's important.
It's important, man, because I I want to put I want to be a practitioner of what it is that I'm talking about. Like at the end of the day, how can I call other people to do a thing that I'm not doing myself, even with the small capacity that I do have, and it's tough, you know what I mean, because we're a small store, you know what I mean? And sometimes the resources aren't always there to help a grown man, acquire what he needs as far as means to sustain. And so it sometimes is heavy on my heart, because it's just like I just want to give the brothers, and it's not closed off to just brothers. The reality is, though, that's who I mostly end up coming in contact with, and who ask, to for me to try to help, you know. But I think I just want to, for however short lived it might be, give them an opportunity to be able to process what it is they're trying to do in a space where there is no pressure. Because sometimes the more major corporations, man, however big it is, from McDonald's all the way up to some corporate place that they may work, it isn't always taking into consideration a brother's journey. And as and a young a young man's transition either, because that's another thing too. And one of the young brothers I have, man, who been with me the longest now, I think he told me the other day, maybe like a year and a half or whatever, man. You know, and I be needing him though at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? Because like he helps me stay on course. You know what I mean? He challenges me. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, like I can't just come in this joint and be like, "Yo, do this, that, and that, third," because it's like, why? And that's another thing too, explaining your whys, you know what I mean, and why you're on that journey inside of the department. A lot of times you don't even have to explain a why, because you're not even given the ability to really make the choices. Like you're being told what to do, and then you're kind of doing it. That's kind of how that goes. So decision making is another one of those things that aligning yourself up with the right resources is important, because you're going to need to be able to sharpen those skills again, because they tell you when to eat, they say, you know what I mean? So like that's why resources are important. But yeah, me having brothers come inside, man, is because I want to be a practitioner of what it is that I'm calling the people to.
No, I got you, man, and that's phenomenal. And something that you spoke up too, my man, challenging you, which is a good thing because as people, regardless of circumstance, a lot of people don't want to be challenged. Like, just think about how many parents, if their child asks why, get upset opposed to explaining to them or articulating in a way that they would know, oh, I'm not just doing this because you said so. I'm doing this because there's a
Right.
lesson in it. So those things are definitely important too. But a lot of people don't want to
And I'm
be
still
challenged.
learning that. I want it on record. I'm still learning that from my close knit circle that make you view this. They're gonna be like, man, Hawk, man, we still can't ask you why. I'm working on that. You know what I mean? Because it be in your head. You know what I mean, for real. And you trying to get it out, but sometimes articulating it doesn't come easy.
Got you, man. So before I let you get up out of here, man, what are some last minute tips that you may have for somebody who is a returning citizen and or somebody who is a up and coming business owner, man?
Hmm. Hold on to your mystique. You gotta hold on to your mystique. The more common, the more familiar uh persons become with you, the more common you become, and the less value oftentimes people will have for your willingness to be involved. It's kind of like, as of right now for me, I'm really invested in my journey. You know what I mean? And full transparency, my internal journey, my mental and emotional and spiritual journey. I mean, yes, I have to come out and operate and function within this space of being a business owner, but the reality is like I'm doing a lot of introspection right now. And so that coincides with trying to run this business, because like I'm finding myself being more removed from the actual day-to-day operations in order to you can't the statement was made by another business owner, like can't work on the business while working, can't work on the business while in the business. And I'm telling you, it's amazing that little that little tweak is working. So we went back to doing our appointment only Sundays and Mondays for the store, even though I'm probably somewhere around earshot. Put the signal up, I'm coming. But I'm using these type of times, and I'm gonna use this now. And you might have wouldn't have wanted me to do this because I want people to know like it's a genuineness. I feel as though for your efforts for having me on. I know you've had a couple of people that you've had on or whatever, right? But like I met you at the train station that evening. You know what I mean? I came over there, and it really was the message that that you propagate. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, the men to heal theme that caught my attention, because that's real. You know what I mean? I mean, the play on words is phenomenal, but that's real though. And what's happening, what I noticed by you allowing me to have some of the things inside the store is that it's a conversation piece even for the sisters, because it's like it seems as though like we are just coming into the realization that we gotta own that we need to we need a safe space to heal too. We can't be any more better for anyone else until we good to ourselves. So that's all tied into the tips that I would give is like hold on to your mystique, value yourself, and don't be afraid to invest in yourself, man, so that you can so you don't pour from an empty cup.
Gotcha, man. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. So, how can people find you, man? How can they order products if they're not in the Richmond area? And if they are in the Richmond area, where can they come and get these products, man?
So my store is located on the best street in the city. I mean, I'm sure there's gonna be some argument there, but we right here on 11 East Broad Street, man. You know what I mean? Bring Broad Street back. Think Broad. You can find us on Hawk's Drawer. All of my tags are Hawk's Drawer. The website is Hawk's Drawer RVA. And what else we got? We got Facebook, we got Instagram. Yeah, at the end of the day, oh, and if there's a vending event going on, man, and it's where you got to be at, you're gonna find, hot with a carved out corner somewhere, because that's how I started too. So I like being out there, and it's bigger than retail. It's not about selling products. It's about the engagement with the community and being grateful for the acceptance of myself and my family and my brand within the community. So invite Hop, to come do your next event.
My man, hey, appreciate you stopping by, brother, taking the time to educate the community, and hopefully you enhance the knowledge of some of the returning citizens, and hopefully they tap in with you, man, just to, assist on their journey of returning, because you are a living example of, how to make those things work. So I appreciate you, and I'll definitely catch you on the next one, bro.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.